This is All India Radio. In the program Insights Now, we bring you a discussion on India's relations with Australia and New Zealand. The participants are Dr. Rajiv Nayan, Strategic Analyst, and Simran Sodhi, Journalist.
Today we are discussing India's relations with Australia and New Zealand. And we also see that the External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, is currently on an official visit to New Zealand and later in Australia. Dr. Nayan, when we see these two visits which are taking place, how would you say overall has been the progress in India's relationship with New Zealand and Australia? If we look at the last few years, how much have they gone forward and what do you feel has been the strength going forward in these ties?
Both are very important Pacific countries and both have been quite important for India for long. In recent years, we have developed very, very close relationship with Australia, as you know, because all of us are members of Quad. In India, United States, Japan and Australia. But we have also tried to develop equally intense relationship with New Zealand as well. Because New Zealand is quite important for us for several reasons. For economic, for trade, for educational, for health reasons, for so many reasons. We find that New Zealand should also play an important role. As you rightly pointed out, that our foreign minister has gone. This is his first visit. So now we are going to emphasize on our relationship with New Zealand as well. I'm sure in the future also, with the progress of visits of the foreign minister, we'll also have a very upcoming relationship with the two countries, two important Pacific countries, and which is quite important for strategic reasons, for other reasons also.
Dr. Nayan, when we talk of India-Australia relations, the one thing that we talk about is the Quad. As we see, the Quad is an organization with India, US, Australia and Japan as members. How do you think has the Quad contributed in getting India and Australia on a common platform when it comes to looking at a lot of global platforms that now we share a common perspective? The fact that we both belong to the Quad and the Quad we also see is becoming much more active in the recent few years.
That's true. Like Quad really defined the bilateral relationships of the two countries. Already India and Australia has got, or you can say, evolved its relationship in many areas. And both of us are Commonwealth countries. We have got Westminster-style democracies. We are expanding our economic engagement and we are increasing high-level interactions. Now we are having foreign ministers visit. Today he was in New Zealand. Tomorrow, thereafter, he will be in Australia also. But already we are working together quite well. Both of us are a strong, vibrant, secular, multicultural democracies. With free press, independent judicial system, and we both speak English quite well and provides us, you can say, a bridge, you can say, an instrument to work together in many economic, commercial areas. And we also know that it serves as a foundation for close cooperation in many other areas, and we have very good people-to-people ties. Many Indian students are going there. Many of our relatives you may find studying in Australia and also working there. So in nutshell, we can say that really we have charted a new trajectory of transformational growth. Till very recent past, we didn't have very good relationship with Australia. Australia was generally considered very close to China, but things have changed dramatically and drastically. We are moving forward and I'm sure our strategic partnership, this is reflected also in a joint declaration on security cooperation, will again provide a new, vista for cooperation, for working together.
Dr. Nayan, as you also mentioned China, and we have seen that the rise of China, which has been aggressive, and we've also seen very aggressive actions by China, whether it is on the border of India or it is in the Indo-Pacific. We have seen a China which is not making anyone comfortable, whether it is India, whether it is Australia or the US. And that is where the Quad also comes in play to a great extent. Do you feel that this common worry that India has, Australia has, along with other global partners about China also contributes in building a better understanding between countries like India and Australia today?
Look, we have been raising the China factor or China issue in bringing about instability or destabilization in the Pacific region for a long time. But Australia was a bit reluctant initially. It has started seeing it itself. So now it has started realizing that yes, China is an issue, and now the way it is forging military relationship, it is going to have bases in some of the small island countries in that area, in that region, definitely must be worrying Australia a lot. So yes, Australia is gradually realizing now we read the reports of their think tanks. So you will find that the realization has really stepped in quite deep, and they are highlighting the Chinese problem, the Chinese intervention. So Australia and India both are also helping each other in developing their capabilities, not only in the military area, but also in high technology zone and many other areas. So in that way, definitely China has become a big rallying point for the forging of the relationship of the two countries, Australia and India. And we will see that if China doesn't change, doesn't mend its ways, we may have more and more areas of cooperation coming up between India and Australia.
Dr. Nayan, we also see that there is a very strong economic component to the relationship. And we also saw that earlier this year, there was the announcement of the signing of an interim free trade agreement between India and Australia, which cut tariffs on exports from Australia to India, including coal, lentils, meat, and wool. This agreement is also the first step towards the long-awaited comprehensive trade deal that has been in the works for a while now. How much do you think is this deal that has finally been signed by India and Australia going to strengthen, one, the economic relationship, and two, how does this economic relationship then strengthen the overall ties between the two countries?
You have rightly pointed out this agreement is really going to strengthen the relationship between India and Australia and other India and I mean in fact India has been emphasizing strengthening the relationship with not only Australia but also with New Zealand also in the economic field. So certainly this is the new trend, the new path which we are exploring and which we are working out will help India's strengthening of relations with the two countries. And with Australia having several strategic papers coming up, and through that strategic papers we have been trying to work out, like there was one economic strategic paper of 2035 to define a pathway. So I think we have built a roadmap, and through that roadmap we are trying to unlock opportunities. So I'm sure that in the coming years or coming months also, we'll find that bilateral and trade coming up. So India is 8th largest trade partner of Australia with goods and services. So I'm sure that I told you earlier that in the recent past our relationship was not so good. But now we have started strengthening the relationship. So I think the rank will definitely improve, and we'll find that this India will become Australia as the 5th or 6th largest trading partner. And we have got many common areas to work on. And our diaspora is quite vibrant and quite lively there. And they are also working quite hard to bring India and Australia together. Recently, we had dialogue between India and Australian strategic community. And that dialogue is also trying to find out new areas to work on. So you will find that not only traditional areas, but also many new areas where the two countries can work together, and the CEO forums or many institutional inventions or mechanisms or innovations which have been made will also contribute to development of the relationship, the economic relationship of the two countries.
Dr. Nayan, we also see that the role of the Indian diaspora in both New Zealand and Australia has become very important. We have a sizable population living in both the countries today that have moved from India and are now settled in New Zealand and Australia. We also saw that the External Affairs Minister did participate in an event in New Zealand where he met members of the Indian community. And how much do you think does the diaspora then contribute to the strengthening of ties? We have people of Indian origin in both New Zealand and Australia. And how much does this then add to the strength of the relationship?
You are quite right. Actually, the Indian diaspora was not very visible in either New Zealand or to an extent even Australia. But quite recently, we have started seeing them and quite frequently in Indian policy circles. And they are trying to bring the two countries together. In Australia, in New Zealand, there are, according to one report, official report, there are 250,000 people of Indian origin or NRI, non-resident Indians. And they are working very hard. These people of Indian origin is of recent origin. They are not staying there for a very long period. Now many of them have become citizens there, and they are now coming up and they are trying to bridge the gap. There are many gaps between the two countries. There was some perceptual gap. Despite being the fact that both are democracies, both love peace, they both work for nuclear disarmament or general disarmament, yet there was some kind of misunderstanding or misapprehension about each other. That is going down, and those things really are being ironed out. All these wrinkles are being ironed out. About Australian diaspora was relatively more visible in, say, last 2 or 3 decades. But nowadays, you can say in last 5 or 6 years or 10 years, you will find them becoming very active, if not as active as American Indian diaspora, you can say, or Indian diaspora staying in UK, could be, or in Gulf countries. But they are also coming up quite well, and they are also contributing. The best thing about Australian diaspora or New Zealand's diaspora, Indian diaspora, is that they are trying to institutionalize. Now we will find that Australia India Institute contributing. They are giving a scholarship to Indian students to study there. Similarly, they are giving projects to Australian and even the diaspora living there in New Zealand. And this is how they are trying to bring multi-dimensionality in the relationship. So from working from cyber security to cultural areas, they are also emphasizing on cultural areas. And in fact, they are carrying the Indian tradition to these two countries is a big instrument, is a big tool to remove many of the apprehensions. So I think diasporas of both the countries are doing extremely well. And they will play a very important role in the coming years or you can say the coming decades, and you'll find the relationship strengthening between the two countries.
Dr. Nayan, when we talk of the diaspora and we talk of the people-to-people ties and the cultural links and the soft power diplomacy, and this is something you mentioned briefly before, would you say that the fact that both India and Australia and New Zealand, the three of them, are cricket-loving nations, so cricket has also played its role in bringing the nations together?
Yeah, that is true. It is a soft power, generally we call it, sport diplomacy. And sometimes what happens that because of cricket, we have got bitterness also, but we overcome it very fast. And thanks to this IPL series, we are engaging sports persons, players from these two countries, and they are becoming part of, say, the broad Indian project. They are also participating in many of the Indian teams, and they are carrying a different message, have changed India's image abroad in Australia and in New Zealand. So I think cricket is really playing a very important role, especially the current version, this IPL type of version, is really helping India to project its soft power abroad, that emerging India, it is not so poor India, but very prosperous India which can do business. And India can do business even in cricket, even in sports. So it can do business in other areas also. So all these messages are going, and they are going quite well there.
And in the coming days, we will continue our discussions, and we will also follow the visit of External Affairs Minister. With these comments, we bring today's discussion to an end. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You were listening to a discussion on India's relations with Australia and New Zealand. The participants were Dr. Rajiv Nayan, Strategic Analyst, and Simran Sodhi, Journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.